I wanted to tell you so many times, but I couldn't. I kept this from you, so you could have the life you'd always dreamed of. I did everything because I love...
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Machtails from the Cantina Live, episode number 60.
Jedi business. Go back to your drinks.
On tonight's episode, some good friends will be stopping by.
I have a bad feeling about this.
For another roundtable discussion on The Acolyte.
I can't believe it.
Producer Matthew Rooney will be behind the board and joining in on the conversation. Producer and brother Rich Brendel is also here for the usual Cheer and a Beer segment.
Open your yaps, boyos!
Grab yourselves a beverage.
He says you spilled his drink.
Smoke if you got him. I am your show host and documentarian Chris Mocht, and we are live inside the Wampa Cave. Wampa! Let the tomfoolery and hijinks begin. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mocktails from the Cantina Live. Getting through the technical difficulties here as we always do. I welcome everyone from wherever you are, and if you're not joining us live, welcome on the replay. I want to start off by thanking my Patreon supporters. I don't mean to bitch and complain, but that little 1.5 minute opening that I do for the show, and I'm not looking for kudos, not looking for a pat on the back, but it takes a long fucking time to put shit like that together. Maybe because I don't really know what the fuck I'm doing. This is a hobby, as most of you know. But I thank the Patreon members for their continued support. It looks like we have some Patreon activity. A lot of people joining for free. You can join for free by simply joining a tier for a week and having access to well over 1,000 different posts, audio, video, and still photos. Again, thank you to my brother and producer Matthew Rooney for creating the Machtails website, which is essentially a nice little umbrella that makes it easy for you guys to just find anything specifically of mine that you're looking for, or maybe be introduced to it. You guys have Acolyte burnout? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe you have burnout from other elements of life or in the real world. It's been a little bit of an interesting last couple of weeks around the globe. We are going to do part 2 of The Acolyte, because simply I did part 1. Don't want to leave you hanging. Left you hanging with the real fans, left you hanging with Saying Goodbye to Jeffrey, the Corvette documentary. There's so many things on the back burner, but Mocktails seems to be keeping the chef busy in the kitchen. Chefs, I should say. I have a lot of help from talent that's going to be joining me on the show, along with producers as well. I'm sure we have some iGame for the kids just chimed in. It's hard for me to keep up with these comments because I'm looking at you as opposed to reading these important comments. But Brother Matthew Rooney will be taking care of that. We also have the drinking word of the night. I know it left everybody maybe in a blue ball situation, or maybe it was orgasmic to see Master Yoda, at least the back of him anyway, in the finale episode of The Acolyte. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my guests tonight. Brother Rich Brendel is going to kick us off with a cheer and a beer, as he always does. Brother Rich, welcome back to the show. You kind of have an Iron Man Ripken thing going on here. You almost have perfect attendance on the live shows. Rich, what are you raising your glass for this evening, man? And we'll raise it with you.
Well, to start out with, this is going a little bit harder for the cheered and beer tonight. it's one of my favorite breweries around the nation. Terrapin. Got a hop,
Terrapin out of Georgia.
Hopsecutioner. And I wasn't as big of a fan of it before I started liking Grateful Dead, but I think because of Terrapin Station, I don't know if that's a dead thing, like why they call it that, but I like it. So, and I got my vintage PBR glass here. So, gonna do a toast to unity tonight because, let's face it, it's been crazy lately with Star Wars, with politics, everything. No matter what side you're on, no matter if you like Acolyte, we're all united in the Force. We're all human.
Hey, cheers, brother. I will drink to that. Unity. We should have made unity the drinking word of the night there. Rich, you're going to stick around, and I want to hear your opinion on the Acolyte. Brother Matthew Rooney is behind the board. We're going to bring him out as well. Bill English says, cheers. David Gladding, always tuning in when he can. Welcome, you guys, and I game for the kids. Sean from Boston. So welcome, guys from all over the place for tuning in. I want to bring on Brother Gunnar Malmstrom, of course, from Gunnar and the Pistols. He's been on the baseball show before. He's on the MLB Network crew with me. See that hat? Nice hat. Gunnar, I know you have some things to say about this show. As soon as Sean sits still in his chair, we'll bring him on as well. Matthew Rooney, we missed you on the last show, so I'm looking forward to hearing your input on what seemed to be a little bit of a controversial, series. I would say that the most controversial of them all. That is my observation, anyway. Gunnar, why don't you, break the ice and let us know how you felt about this? I know you said you kind of went against the grain, and your opinion varies from what's out there.
Yeah. So first off, I had no interest in the show. Zero. I am an EU guy. Like, my love of Star Wars streams from my love of the original EU. And when Disney came and kind of destroyed the EU, I was a little upset, but that's okay. So this High Republic era just screams everything Disney that I hate about Star Wars, which is just that everything I love, they got rid of Disney. So I was really against it. I haven't read one comic or one book involving the High Republic. And then the show's getting ready to start, and Leslie Headlam is just trying to destroy the show before it even comes out with her comments. This is going to be the gayest Star Wars ever. And, oh, by the way, R2-D2's a lesbian. And it's like, I don't want to watch this already, and you're making me not want to watch it more. But as the show went on, it's not a perfect show. I've got plenty of gripes about it. I felt like I loved it more and more and more every week, and I love this finale. Now, there's stuff I didn't love about it, but I really loved it. And I had to stay away from all forms of media as far as podcasts I love and websites I like and YouTube channels that I watch. I had to stay away from so many of them because I didn't want the toxicity of the fandom just destroying this show for me. Like, I wanted to kind of love it or hate it on my own. And so I've been like pretty much blacked out of media on this, with the exception of a few like web series that just kind of break things down. They don't really talk a lot about it. So outside of that, I've really I wanted my opinions to be of my own. So.
And so you again, to just kind of recap all that you said there, you were happy with it in the end.
Oh yeah, man! I love the finale. I love the finale.
Matthew, I didn't get a chance to talk to you about this show.
Yeah, we talked about it some on the podcast. I'm actually kind of in the same boat with Gunner. Like, I also was displeased with the EU. I mean, it was never canon anyway because it was, not George level canon. But I definitely, and especially High Republic, I did give it a shot. Like, I did read the comics and the novels, for the first year or two, and then I just didn't like him very much, and it kind of caused me actually to stop reading Star Wars comics and novels altogether, because a lot of the authors who were doing High Republic kind of got their way into all the media, and I just don't like what they're doing. And it really made me miss some of the older, Tales of the Jedi comics and stuff like that were kind of pushed away because of their push away from the EU. But I'm also kind of in the same boat, because I also don't, I not just for this show, but for the past year and a half, I haven't, aside from this show, Mocktails, I don't consume any Star Wars podcasts or anything anymore, just because I'm sick of hearing about what people think all the time and negativity and all that. I just want to watch it for myself and enjoy it, or not enjoy it on my own, and talk to the friends that I care about the show. But I did like the show. I mentioned to you on the podcast that I don't like when they just kill off characters quickly and try to get a reaction that I'm just killing people. So that kind of bothers me a little bit. Like that, I think it was the 4th or 5th episode where they killed off the Padawan and the other guy with the funky hair. They that episode I didn't like very much, just because I felt like we barely got to know those characters, and now they're dead, and so you can't do anything with them anymore. And I did like those two characters, but overall I thought it was a good show, and I think there's a lot of potential to do more in the future, especially with dark side stuff. Like they could maybe give some backstory on where Sidious came from, or Plagueis, those sorts of things, since we're 100 years or so, I think, before the prequel movies. So I think it has potential there. I mean, the only thing I liked about High Republic was the Vernestra character who was in the show, and so it was nice to see her and to see her kind of white lightsaber whip, which she was the only character I liked in High Republic. So I'm glad that she made it through, and I must not be the only person who liked her, since she's made it into this show, and she's going to be there in the future if they decide to pick it up again. But who knows? The whole, I don't know. I didn't read Leslie, her comments about it being gay, but I'm also a big Star Trek person, and I like Star Trek Discovery, which is also pretty gay. And so for me, it wasn't really a big deal, because they've been doing that for years in the other universe. So,
and I don't mind it being gay, but to be honest, she said this is the gayest thing in Star Wars, and I mean, there was one lesbian couple that didn't have any PDA, which Rise of Skywalker did, so I would say that's the gayest Star Wars. Again, didn't have a problem.
That's what I was watching it for. I wanted the hot lesbian action.
Hey, let's bring him out from behind the curtain. I'm going to bust his balls a little bit. He tuned into the Nerf Herder Council show, but he never tunes in to Mocktails from the Cantina unless he's on the show. But he's on the show tonight. So welcome. I want to hear from you, brother Sean Hines. Your take. We talk a lot. We always make sure we're in the same. We're always helping each other out from a collecting standpoint. And we talk daily through that. But we did not talk about the Acolyte at all.
That's interesting, because I appreciate you asking me to be a part of this, your second episode on the Acolyte. I only have one question. Where was the invitation on the first episode of the Acolyte?
Producer. You got to be a producer, man. Last show was producers only. So for those of you that want to join and become a producer, you could be on every single show that I have live. Or you got to wait for your invitation, like brother Sean Hines is receiving.
Well, that's okay.
Is Sean a Patreon member?
It's perfectly. I am a cast member of the Mockverse. I am cast and crew of the Mockverse. Marvel has their MCU. I have the CMU.
Yeah.
Amen to that. It's an amen to that.
And I got cut out of the Mockverse because all my scenes have gotten cut out so far.
No, they've been cut out. They just haven't been finished. We've got a whole second half of real fans they still see. We can watch
the audio from the Wolves game. So that's Mocktails, but that the audio is lost.
Getting the train back on track here.
Right. You wanted to go down this busting balls route, pal. So as you know, we're just.
I opened the floodgates clearly on that one. Damn, this book wide open on that one.
No worries. Anyhow.
But Gunner is on the Mockverse, though. He has a page on there.
Got a little blurb in there.
Gunner is under mockverse.com. Yeah, he's been in enough productions that have seen a little bit of the light of day. Yeah, he's part of the, like you said, Sean, part of the Machtails family.
He's the what's that action figure that came out for Phantom Menace? Zuvio.
Oh,
he's the he's the Zuvio of the Mockverse, I guess you could say. He's there. He's there. I trust me. He's there.
Still warming those pegs.
General
Anyway, what are we here for? We're talking about this Acolyte show. That's right. Okay, let's get
show. Yeah, we're talking about the show, and I know we got a little bit of burnout. Brother John Drake and AJ Drake, who are Patreon members, I got to give them a shout out just for not only doing what they do, supporting the show, but their own show, Nerf Herder Council. I was on their show on Wednesday. Then Rebel Force Radio, brothers Jimmy and Jason had theirs this week. So we're like sloppy seconds, I guess. So if you have any thoughts that were missed in, the last couple of days, now's a chance to speak your mind. Hey, I got to give a shout out to producer Andy from Miami. Oh, I just stepped over your toes. Greetings from the hospital, boys. Just jumped on to say hi. I'll catch you on the replay. Yeah, Andy just had him and his wife. They just welcomed their first child in. So we miss Andy. He's obviously been a producer, Patreon member number 1 since the beginning. And he's going to be busy as a dad. First-time dad for a while. So
that's exciting. Big congratulations to Andy.
Yeah, enjoy those diapers.
From all of us. From all of us to you guys. So, Sean, where does it stand for you, the Acolyte, as far as all these Star Wars, I call them television shows, but they're streaming, right?
It's a TV show. Just call it what it is. It's a story broken up into more than one episode, so it's a TV show. I don't care where you watch it at. So and then they release it once every week, just like a regular TV show. So it's a TV show. The Acolyte is it was an interesting watch. I'm a little bit in the Gunner camp. I don't hate it as much as the internet would lead you to believe. Like he was saying, there's just so much. If you were to go on and just Google the Acolyte and say on YouTube or something, you would think that this is just the end of the apocalypse of Star Wars, the way they describe it, with the Rotten Tomato scores and all that. But you got to ignore all that. As a Star Wars fan, you got to just kind of let that wash over you, watch the show and take what you want out of it. I'm just sort of I'll be honest, I haven't been excited about Star Wars projects for a while, except since The Mandalorian, just because that Mandalorian rejuvenated like the excitement I had for watching a story. There's stuff that's going on. I like people who didn't like Obi-Wan. I thought Obi-Wan was fine. Was it perfect? No. Same thing with the Acolyte. It wasn't a perfect show, but it was still an entertaining show. I think it could have been pieced together a little differently story-wise. But again, it's not the firestorm the internet would let you to believe it is. It's if you're avoiding it because of what you've heard online, you're doing yourself a disservice, because there's a lot of good in this show that you can still enjoy.
Do you think The Mandalorian, being the debut streaming show, television show, do you think that raised the bar so fucking high because it was, one, fresh, because it was the first streaming, and the story was kind of new in a way, with a couple throwbacks to the old days,
It had enough of playing in the old sandbox to make it feel, original, to trigger those member berries. and but it introduced a different spin on things from a Mandalorian perspective, and got to explore the universe that we know that is Star Wars from a different perspective, and see the worlds in from different ways, and just kind of dig a little deeper into the woods of different planets and characters and fractions, and it's something that isn't centered around a Skywalker, and that's what I always thought a Star Wars TV show would be, exploring all the different nooks and crannies that Star Wars universe has to offer. And they're trying to do that, but like Gunnar said, when they killed off the EU or whatever it was, and now they're just sort of picking and choosing what they want from the EU to bring it back because, okay, the fans like this from the EU, let's try to bring that in to make this show look good. It's a little disingenuous sometimes when something pops up, and then it's exciting, and sometimes when it's just like when Cad Bane shows up, in Book of Boba Fett, I believe it was. So there's all these different things that you get to take, like this scene here with the Jedi and that lightsaber battle. I thought was fantastic. I mean, you kind of knew that all the red shirt Jedis were going to get taken out right away, because they never even had time to introduce their names, so they were going to be the first ones out the door. But yeah, it was a surprise just that they took out like Jekki and Yord, and which I don't think anybody was sad about Yord being gone, because he was very unlikable as a character, and I think that was intentional. But my question about Yord is, what the hell happened to his Padawan that he had in the first episode? Does anybody remember? When he came to the ship and he introduced his Padawan with the big elf-looking ears, looked like something out of Magic Quest or something along those lines. And then all of a sudden, after a while, you start to think Jekki was his Padawan, because those are the only time you only saw those two together a lot. But it's like, did he just stop training her? Did she become her own Jedi Master? Or does she not want to avenge him? Or is this something we'll wait till? Or did they only have enough money in the budget to do that makeup job one time? These are the things I wonder about.
I think that, I don't know. How do I say this? I feel like 8 episodes wasn't enough. I know the episodes were very, very short. They probably could have made a movie. God knows the budget that they had was, similar to a theatrical release.
Yeah, you're right.
And I feel like one of the things too, I thought about this. It's like, okay, another Star Wars project has come and gone. I feel like it's just too, like, Star Wars has become for lack of a better term, it's very disposable. It's like, okay, I watched it. Okay, on to the next, whatever. I felt like in the old days, not even the old days, even with the sequels, you would have the time in between. I believe the sequels came out a lot closer to one another than, say, the formula of every other 2 years, right? 77, right. 83, 99, 02, 05. You were able to at least like take the 3 years and go see it several times in a theater, follow the collection lines for a couple years, anticipate the next film coming out. It breathed a lot better. This is a very, very like toss away kind of, okay, what's next for Star Wars? What's next for Star Wars? Oh, that sucked. Oh, that was great. Oh, is it going to be? I don't know.
It's like, you're right. Even though you are getting a different, you have to wait a week for each episode because the episodes are so short. Yeah, it does kind of add once you finally get through the 8 episodes. I guess you could kind of say you have the same feeling of it not being enough as if you were to sit and binge watch a show and then it'd be really awesome, and then you're like, well, that's over. That was over too fast. Now I want more. They really need to stop. Just Disney Plus in general, they really need to stop this way of editing shows where there is no consistent time frame. And you make it if it's going to be a half hour, make it a half hour, not 35 minutes, 44 minutes, 37. Make it an hour. Just make them hour episodes. I mean, there's no reason why they can't do the full out. Make each episode a full hour. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest downfalls of every Disney shows. The episodes are never long enough, and the seasons are never long enough. Even the 12 episodes of Andor, every Star Wars show always has the same problem. Build up. Then you get to the last 2 episodes, and you got a lot of stuff you got to wrap up in 1 or 2 episodes. It doesn't work. It makes it very difficult to stick. It makes it very difficult to stick the landing in the final episode when you got that much to wrap up, unless you know for sure you're going to get a second season. And with the way things are with the backlash, there's no guarantee of a second season if a show gets enough hate for some reason, which is sad because there are so many shows that could get redeemed if given a second season. There are shows that on like Seinfeld was supposed, they were going to cancel that after the first 6 episodes, but because there was nothing else really on to put in its place, they just let it go, and it started to find its audience. That's people are too quick to give up on something before they give it a chance to let it grow, mature, and find its audience. And that's, like you said, it's sort of this disposable throwaway product. Well, that didn't work. What else we got?
The main issue that I have, I don't care about the length that much, but the main issue that I have with these shows is that I feel like they can't tell a beginning, middle, and end to a story. Like when George made A New Hope, it was a story on its own. Like it could go by itself. And then of course he got the freedom to make more. And so he could plan out a trilogy, but the trilogy was, a trilogy. It was designed that way. And that's why I think the Obi-Wan show was great, because it had an end to it. It doesn't have to extend on. And that's, I think, the result of the whole a Marvel thing nowadays, where it's everything has to lead into each other and everything has to be connected. And I would rather just see a show that can be self-contained, like the Andor show as well. It's going to have a second season, but it was designed that way. It's supposed to have these parts to it, and it's been already thought out, and it has an ending. And so it's, to me, that's a good story. It shouldn't just be this open-ended thing, with the Ahsoka show and with this show and with Mandalorian too, to a certain extent. They just have it open-ended, and I feel like they don't have an end in mind. They're just going to keep making it as long as they can, and as long as people will watch it and they can make money off of it, instead of telling a real story that has an ending to it and a purpose.
I kind of feel like that was the sequel trilogy's problems. And maybe not that they didn't have an ending, but I feel like they set up a story, and then it got derailed after The Last Jedi, and they just scrambled to throw together The Rise of Skywalker, which had nothing to do with everything else, or just fixing it. But another problem I had with Acolyte was I felt like there were some subplots that they gave no time to. The whole thing with Renesta and the senator. Give us that scene earlier in the season, or give us several scenes of this topic leading into it. I was really fascinated by that. I love, especially in prequel type settings, I stand up for the prequels. I love the prequels because you know how it ends. It ends in A New Hope. And the fun part of the prequels is the ride getting there. So we know how this series ends. It ends with the Phantom Menace, but it's just the ride getting there. And I just found it interesting, the whole idea of the Senate not trusting the Jedi, and how do they get from this kind of Wild West of Jedis, which is kind of what it felt like, to the kind of buttoned up, bottle-nosed Jedi Council we got in Phantom Menace. Give me more of that transition from this series to the next. I think that, and it's just little things, a scene here, a scene there, because I thought that was fascinating. I don't know what anyone else said. If anyone else is boo, politics and Star Wars, I like that. Give me more plot line. And I felt like that was a problem with at least this specific last episode, was just kind of by the way, here's a scene that's going to change everything. We could have had that earlier in the show, building up to the inevitable, where we are in the Phantom Menace, where the council is much more tighter on everything. And eventually, when we get to the end of Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, where the Jedi are the military. That's not what the Jedi were. They were never the military, but there was a genius Sith Lord that played both sides and got the Jedi as the military. So just give us a little more of that, just a little. And I think it would help, because a lot of people complain about the screenplay or complain about the dialogue. And look, I love Star Wars more than life itself. I say this all the time. My wife gave me the ultimatum to choose her Star Wars. I choose her, but I think about it. That's how much I love Star Wars. But saying all that, I am not a fool to think that this is written, that every part of this is written by an Academy Award winning screenwriter, which some of it is, but some of it is also written by the author of The Scorpion King, or, as much as I hate to say it, some of George Lucas. Because, yeah, as much as we love to say it's sand is coarse and it's rough and it gets everywhere, so you can, if you don't love Star Wars, you might not love that line. So I'm fine with some of the dialogue not being as sharp as it is in other sections. That's part of Star Wars. We don't love it for that. We love it for everything else. So, just a little tweaking here and there, and I think it would have been a much better show.
So Gunner, you said that you wish that you had more of the story, right?
Yeah.
That's probably why they did that. They left you wanting more.
No, that's true. That's true. They definitely left me with, just take Leslie Headland, lock her in a cage so she doesn't say anything to piss off Lucasfilm so we can get this second season, because I told you I love EU. What's my favorite? Tell me to pick one thing in the EU to recommend. It's a certain novel called Darth Plagueis, and I'm sure we'll get to that later, but
I think
so
it's only
can I go
okay.
on a soapbox about the EU for a moment, because two of the guys said they hated that it ended. The truth is, at that point, the EU was a dumpster fire. Chewbacca was dead, and they had to do new movies. It had to be done. I know it kind of hurt, but it had to be done.
When Disney first bought it, honestly, I was so excited that we were getting new Star Wars, but what was the cost? Because if you remember, Disney came in, first thing they did, they canceled the EU, they canceled Clone Wars, and they canceled LucasArts, which we were about to get that whole whatever, what was that, level 13 or whatever, where 1313. We were going to get that, which was eventually, it sounded like, was going to be a show, Detours, and it's like everything I love was taken away for more movies, which I was happy about more movies, but it was a very hard axe to swallow. Now, luckily, Disney realized what they had in Dave Filoni, and they brought him back to not only do Rebels and shepherd this new generation of television shows, but they brought back Clone Wars twice. So yes. I am happy about that. But at first glance, it's like awesome. But wait a minute. And I'll remember, Sean, do you remember when they announced that Disney bought it? You and I, we were at work. Sean and I used to work together, and we had our That Thing You Do moment where we're jumping up and down, hugging each other like they played our first song on the radio for the first time. It was we were like, we're going to get one Star Wars. It was an amazing moment that you can never take that moment away. And Sean, I'm so glad you were there to share, because I just look around, I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? I have everyone, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, maybe Sean's here. And I saw you on the phone talking to Alfie, quiet in the corner. And I just saw we looked at each other. We just started hugging. I mean,
we knew. We just saw each other. We knew it. And we
people don't feel like that when they announce new Star Wars television shows. Yeah. Rich, to go back to what you were saying, they want you to be left with wanting more. That's okay if they fucking deliver a season 2. Yes. Going back to what Sean had said, to chime in with what John Drake and I were talking about a couple of days ago, they don't care about the backlash. There was a difference between Solo, because Solo did not produce the numbers. Disney is about the streaming. If you pay for Disney Plus, you're going to stream any new Star Wars, love it or hate it. They're not going to cancel it based on the fans negativity. Also, I think there is such thing as too much Star Wars, and I've never been a fan of Disney releasing that whole big fucking spreadsheet of all these 30 films, these 30 TV shows that are coming out. I'm like, how are you going to physically possibly be able to produce all of those shows?
It's too much. It's too much.
No way you can't. I would rather have them, a show ends, hey, we have in development now, not, don't try to sell me a lifetime of Disney Plus, because if you're talking about 30 shows that might not even see the light of day.
Yeah, you don't have to
have a problem with that.
Yeah, you don't have to have a constant stream of content to just to keep the brand alive. Like, maybe that's because times are different now. But if it's not in the consciousness, people forget about it too quickly now because of short memory spans and stuff. But we had to wait 3 years between each of the original movies, and almost 3 years between each of the prequel movies. So there is some truth to this slogan. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. So you get something to be excited about when it comes back. If you're just constantly hitting one thing after the other, it is going to get old, and and the quality is going to probably not be up to what some people think is necessary. And that's the thing. Like Chris, you had mentioned before about the storytelling and the way they stuck that. Or was it? Or maybe it was Matt about the linear storytelling. I'm on the same page with that because I don't. As far as Star Wars is concerned, I don't think that the concept of a flashback works in Star Wars. Those 2 episodes, although the episodes on their own are okay, I don't think that was necessary to be flashbacks or 2 episodes. You could have shown it could have been edited to show the Coven's view and Saul's view, edit them run right after the other, because you didn't get any new information until the very end with the big fight with Kalnaka and everybody. And I think that story of them on that planet looking for the virgins should have been episode 1. Sets up the story of the twins, sets up where they can, and then you can flash forward to episode 2 to her waking up on the ship. Oh, she's a mechanic now. What happened to her Jedi training? And then you just let the story play out in a linear fashion. I think that works better in Star Wars than having flashbacks, because we never had flashbacks until the sequel trilogy, when flashbacks to 2 different stories of Luke attacking Kylo Ren in his sleep, and now the Acolyte. I just don't think flashbacks work in Star Wars when it comes to storytelling.
I was a big fan, I want to say, of episode 7, right? I only watched them once all the way through, but I really liked the episode where they had I don't know if this would necessarily be called a flashback scene, but they had went back and shown the perspective of Saul, when he was going to when the Jedi went into the area where all the witches were. I thought that was done really well, where they filmed both scenes from 2 different angles. I thought that was very, very crafty. And I really, really liked that visually. And I like the feel of it as well. I don't know. I know we spent way too much time on the first episode of The Acolyte talking about the negativity and just going to bat for Star Wars and defending it. Overall, I really, really enjoyed the show. I've enjoyed all the shows. Maybe I'm just I don't know why am I not complaining like half the other fans are? I'm trying to wonder that about my own fandom lately.
I have a theory behind that one, Chris. I think the reason why so many fans are complaining is because fans don't like to think. That's why Mandalorian was so huge. This enhanced the lore, whereas Mando, it did some of the stuff that hinted at some of the stuff for the sequels, but it didn't really enhance the lore. Acolyte did. And it challenged thoughts that people developed years and years ago about the Jedi, and that pissed them off. But those thoughts were just not true. Those, the Jedi aren't always honorable.
You're thinking it fucked with their headcanon.
Yeah.
Headcanon. Everybody loves their own headcanon.
People,
everybody's got it. If you think about it.
People so often just want to watch TV. They don't want to think. And that's a major reason why a lot of people didn't like it.
And
I think also the fact that we have been playing with Star Wars toys for 40 plus years, almost 50 years, we've been playing with these toys. And the problem is these shows come out and things are different than they were when we were playing. The stories that Lucasfilm is telling now are not the same stories that we were telling with our toys to ourselves. And I think that's where some of the problem is. So, and also,
you know what? Let's talk a little bit about that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the whole playing with the toys. My daughter has been asking me to play with the toys, and I have a very hard time getting into my 10-year-old self. I collect the toys. She goes, "Daddy, you love toys. You got them all over your basement." She goes, "Why don't you play with them?" I'm like, "That's a very, very good point." When I was a kid and played with my own toys, I'm trying to think, maybe I want to hear from you guys. Did you follow the Star Wars stories, or did you make up your own stories when you played?
100%. 100%. I made my own new adventures with the characters, using a lot of the play sets. Going to the sandbox and pretending I'm on Tatooine and going on a different adventure. Sticking the Diagnoga in the sand and pretending it's actually something on Tatooine.
Can anybody else not hear Sean?
What?
I can hear him. It's just low.
I can hear him. Sean, if you don't mind, can you go back to your original microphone?
Oh yeah, I had to switch for a second. Sorry about that. I had to plug my phone in for a minute. Let me try.
That's all right. You know what? I'm gonna get back to Sean in a second after he gets the technical difficulties out of that. Gunnar, what about you with the toys? So I did do my own adventures, but my favorite thing to do was I would put on the movie and I would act out the movie with the toys. But I had a G.I. Joe. I can't remember his name, but he had a vest and an open chest and a mustache. And I had the Star Wars storybook with the big scene. So I made him Biggs, and I would do the whole movie, but Biggs would come with them, which it's weird how, 45 years later, Wedge is my favorite character and not Biggs, but I would do the whole movie, but Biggs would go with them. I had all the figures, and Biggs was going on the adventure, shooting stormtroopers, and I didn't know at the time that Biggs was the pilot with the checkerboard helmet. I never knew that. I just knew Biggs from that deleted scene because it was in the Star Wars book. So yeah, that would be my favorite. I would do that a lot, but I would also, redo the adventures. So it's kind of like you would enhance the Star Wars story by. Yeah. They should have made a Biggs figure, but instead they decided to make a General Madine figure.
Probably Biggs, but 96, I think, with Power of the Force 2.
Yeah, years later they made him, but I feel like Kenner missed out on a lot of opportunity, and I know hearing the stories from those toy makers, they were under a lot of pressure and deadlines, and maybe it wasn't easy to just sling out toys like it was later on. But I feel like Kenner could have really enhanced that toy line as much as I.
Why did they call us to work for them? I mean, we were, 1 and 2 years old. We would have had some great ideas for them.
Absolutely, Matt. What about you with the toys? Did you play
unfortunately,
with
I didn't have the Star Wars toys just because I was born in '83, and so like my for me, like that age of playing with those toys was like late '80s when I don't think they're being produced anymore. I don't know because they weren't on the shelves anymore. But I did have Lego, and so I would watch the films constantly on video and try to like make the scenes or the like vehicles with the Lego. So I was doing it still in that way, but I wasn't like going off my own adventures. It was just trying to recreate what I was watching on the film.
Rich, as a counselor, therapist, when is it unhealthy to play with your toys?
Never.
What's
Never.
the cutoff?
But I have a funny story about, like, your question was, did we fantasize or act out scenes?
Well, yeah, with the figures, yes.
For that, I have something actually really funny. I was hardcore. You had to act out the scenes. And to the point where I remember for like my 6th or 7th birthday, on the birthday cake, it was pink icing, and there were a bunch of Star Wars figures on there. And 2 of them I remember were there was a Tauntaun and there was Admiral Akbar on it. And that pissed me off. Because
crossing
those
the streams
2 would never be together. And also with that, what in the hell are they doing standing on something pink? And that actually pissed me off when I was a kid. So I wasn't into the whole fantasy.
Is there no pink in Star Wars?
Had to be exactly like the movie, right?
Yeah. I think I even remember those little caption stickers that you can stick on, like the word bubbles that you can stick on your photographs as a kid. Remember those?
Yeah.
I got one of those, and the guy was saying in it, one of the characters was saying, "What is this pink stuff we're standing in?" That's how.
It's Cloud City Clouds.
Yeah, that's how hardcore I was about that.
It's
about playing. Yeah.
So,
I can't stress enough how important it is for adults to keep on playing, even as
you can't express
that part of your childhood.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, I do that a little bit with my daughter. I still love it. My daughter made me get out. She's done this to me 2 or 3 times, getting out her older toys out of storage in the crawl space. But I love that. That's why I want to keep that stuff, because there's going to be a time if we gave it away. Oh my God, you gave those away? Like, yeah, we got to keep her stuff. She's cut from the same cloth as I am. It's not as easy for me to get into playing with her as I, would like it to be. But, I still give her the time, and I've opened up so many 12-inch Star Wars figures because she's like, yeah, bring up some Star Wars toys. I'm like, okay, let's keep
That's
it what
nice,
we're doing.
though. And there's only so much time you'll get with her at that age, so I think it's great.
You know what? I can't, Rich, you probably can't express that enough either. That, there's only so much time you get with your kids,
Yeah. Like, I remember after Star Wars Celebration 5, it was when they started coming out with the vintage collection again. And I had Darth Vader and Boba Fett, but I hadn't opened them yet. And I was going through Star Wars Withdrawal after Celebration, something I'm sure anybody who's been to Celebration can relate to, right?
Yeah,
where it's like
sure.
you're just smothered with Star Wars for like 4 days, and then all of a sudden you don't have it. And I'm like, I gotta do something. So I ripped those toys open and got that smell of the plastic right there.
Yeah.
And instant happiness. And that opened up the door for collecting to me again. And like my happy place was me just rearranging my figures, and that was it was almost like a meditative thing for me.
Yeah, I can see that easily. Getting the train back on track and talking about the Acolyte while we wrap up the show. We did the first 4 episodes on the last live show. I would have to say that I really enjoyed the last 4 episodes more than I did the first 4. The show to me just kept. God, this is going to sound controversial, but it kept getting better. Like every episode, I was like, I wanted more.
Except
really
that fucking man bun Wookie.
Oh, I love him. He just wasn't in it enough. I love that.
Yeah,
Wookie,
I wanted more of him and of
I hate
what's her
man
name?
buns.
But
it was a different time back then, Rich. It was a different time.
No, man.
yeah,
I walked out of bars because somebody walked in with a man bun before.
It's not man bun, it's a Wookiee bun.
Again, I felt my complaint episodes were way too short. Gunnar, to kind of, go back to what you were saying, they could have spent a little bit more time with some of those sub stories, if you will, just to kind of give the show an overall, more flavor, if you will. And I was at the end of it, I was left with, okay, my question is answered. There's going to be a season 2. Now, not officially by any means, but just the way that show had played out, especially at the end, I'm like, there's got to be a season 2. But think about it. We're only getting Star Wars in doses, even though we're getting a lot of it a lot sooner than we were, say with the movie releases, especially back in the OT and the prequel trilogy. There's a cycle. Okay, now we got to go back to Andor season 2. Acolyte season 2, you're going to take a seat for a couple years because we're going to focus on this series that ended. Everybody's waiting for that. I feel like there's a lot of Star Wars, and which is, there's too much at once. I want to say not too much Star Wars, but too much at once. I feel like they how are they going to fulfill all our Star Wars needs with everything that they've announced, everything that they've shown in the seasons that have been released? I don't know. Do you guys feel like these streaming shows will have the same legacy as the trilogies have, even compared to the sequel trilogy?
Absolutely
no.
Why
I like
not?
them, but no, it's not of the same caliber. I mean, as those films, I mean, they have a certain epic quality to them, and larger than life characters. And this is more about, I don't know if I'd say it's about everyday people, but I don't know, like less. It's less on that scale, like where it's challenging the whole, universe and all of existence, like the films do. The stakes are much higher in those pictures, and not only that, but just the creative driving force behind them, makes them special too. Not just the storytelling and what's actually on screen, but all of the special effects and all that kind of stuff. The music, is which, I mean, this show had great music too, but it's just not on the same scale as what they do in the films.
An epic John Williams scale,
Yeah.
Matt, I disagree with you a little because honestly, I think Clone Wars has a legacy. I think it has a big legacy. Now, to answer Chris's question, there's a very good chance we won't know till 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line. I think Mandalorian will have a legacy. I think because it's the first, and it was good. I think Andor has a chance to be a legacy because it's so different than anything else. And it's like the one thing I feel outside of maybe Mandalorian that has just been almost completely positive. I don't know anyone that didn't just love Andor. And not one person ever said, "Oh, that show is so boring." Like everyone loves Andor. So I think it has let me rephrase. It has a chance for that legacy. And I know, do you guys agree with me on that? I think Clone Wars has that legacy, but it was.
I agree with that. But Chris was saying on the same level as the trilogy, and I mean, like the original trilogy to me is like nowhere. It's like its own thing.
Yeah. Well, that is true. I think Clone Wars might have a bigger legacy than the sequel trilogies. I think the fact that that's so controversial, it's you either love it or you hate it. I think that I don't know anyone outside of Chris. You ever finished? I know you weren't watching the Clone Wars for years. But Chris, I don't know anyone that didn't love Clone Wars. That's just because you haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, and I agree with you there that Clone Wars does have a legacy because people bust my balls all the time for not watching it, and people tell me all the time that I need to watch it and then I must watch it, and I still hear about it on a regular basis. So, and that let's be honest. I mean, the Clone Wars came out first quite some time ago. So yeah, I believe that does have a legacy. Definitely not.
No,
So
Matthew,
I'm just curious.
he said, I was just gonna say my last thing about this. The creators behind it are part of the reason why Star Wars has such great legacy. But George Lucas created Clone Wars, so that is part of Lucas's legacy. So maybe where I was saying, that Clone Wars has a legacy. Yeah, the prequels, the original trilogy, and Clone Wars. They stand up on their own. They're George. And when people who have criticized George for so long now are starting to love the prequels, I'm like, you know what? It's because of George. Like you hated George so much during the prequels. You blamed him for everything. Now you love Clone Wars. Now you love the prequels. Guess what? You love George. Just admit it. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, Sean.
That's okay. I guess I don't. If I try to switch back to my mic, I'm going to lose the power on my phone. But anyhow, just real quick, Chris. So, what is your big aversion to just watching the Clone Wars? I mean, do you just don't have an interest, or you think you're too big of a big boy to watch cartoons? I don't understand.
Oh no, I watch cartoons all the time.
So is there something specific that is keeping you away?
Fucking Bluey, right, man? Fucking Bluey.
Yeah. You know what's great is the current Mickey Mouse cartoons on Disney Plus that remind me so much of Ren and Stimpy. It's the same animation that they use on Mickey's Runaway Railway. It's so fucking good. I could watch cartoons morning, noon, and night. I don't know. It's now it's a commitment. Even if people go, oh, well, you only have to watch these episodes. Look, I love The Boys, the show The Boys, a superhero show. And I started watching season 2, and dude, there is only so much time in the day. And God bless all of you out there for having the time to watch as much television as you do. I just cannot find enough time to get the shit that I need to do done, on top of going back and watching 10 seasons of the fucking Clone Wars. It's too late for me, my friend.
I'm coming over with bowls of cereal, and you at 7 a.m, we're going to watch 2-3 episodes a day and get on with you can give a little hours of sleep. We're going to eat cereal, and we're going to watch the Clone Wars.
You can do it, Chris. I have faith in you. Once you start down the path of the Clone Wars, forever will it dominate your viewing habits.
Do a mock table round table of each episode. No.
Yeah, we're going to go back old school, right? I think here's the thing, too. I think the great thing about Star Wars is that it's timeless, no matter what show it is. I mean, people even talk about Caravan of Courage and the droid cartoons, even though those are kind of like the bastard children of the Star Wars universe, right? But they're still part of, like you guys said, George's stories, George's ideas. I love the fact that none of this really gets old, and how old it is, it's timeless, and we still find the time to talk about it and connect over it. Even though we disagree with each other, the most important thing in a conversation is to listen to each other and learn from each other as well,
So one thing about your question, one thing about your question on the is the legacy going to be the same for OT versus all the stuff now? One of the major things I think that Disney is failing on that will not make it like that is toys. We see so many OT toys, but we don't see any toys from these other series.
That's very, very true. That is, and it's funny because everybody thinks that, George set the bar for that. Merchandising. Yeah. So even said by yogurt. The merchandising is definitely gone away with a lot of these newer shows. I mean, we're getting some here, some there, but I remember walking in, we all remember walking into Toys R Us when all those movies came out. All 9 of them and just getting bombarded by all those fucking toys.
Yeah.
But isn't it part of it? I mean, I'm not a toy collector, so I can't. I'm an outsider, I guess, in this discussion. But isn't it? I mean, to me, it's because like this isn't really a kids show. I'm not saying that toys are only for kids, but kind of they gear them toward kids, and this isn't really kids show. So is that why? I mean, this show in particular, I guess.
Sean and I just had this conversation, was it last weekend, about the fact that like we're not getting here. The other problem is we're not getting the toys in our lines. We want the vintage. We want the figures in vintage or to a little lesser, or in retro. And we're not getting this stupid, whatever this new line is, the 4-inch. How are they getting Moff Gideon in that cool, helmet before we're getting in vintage? It's not that they're not making the toys. They're not making the toys for the people that buy the toys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right. The kids
Hasbro got lazy is what happened. It's not the same company that it was.
If you look at Mattel's line,
we got that box set of retro style Acolyte figures, but by the time people get them, out that set is dead in the set. The characters go.
Well, we only got one of the Bad Batch members, one in the vintage line. Not one of each member of the team, one member of the Bad Batch. How is that
not just make
possible?
the whole batch? How do you not just make the whole batch in an assortment? That just, like you said, Hasbro just gets lazy.
Yeah. If you look at the He-Man Mattel line,
they're killing
They are doing it right.
They're killing
They're
it.
doing it right. Like they got the nostalgic factor, and
the new stuff.
I'm going to announce it right now. Mocktails from the Cantina Live, episode number 61 for the month of August. We are going to focus on toys and collecting. We've never done a show like that before. We're going to do it. We're going to do that next month.
I thought you were going to say that you were going to make toys of all of us, like figures of us, Mocktails line. That's what I thought you were.
If I remember correctly, there is a vintage card with me on it. I just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, we need to get that. The ball busting continues here, but I deserve to have kind of ball busting for sure. That is the only card that's been released that's seen the light of day is Brother Bo Glazer's. But yes, we have that. You know what? I mark my words, guys. I promise you, I will have those printed up for the next show that we're going to do here. And I'd like to welcome you guys all back to that one because I know you guys are big collectors, except for Matthew Rooney. But see, when you're a producer, you get to be part of every show we do here. Every single show.
I do have a little Luke here. I don't know anything about it though.
Here, let me get it.
Nice.
It's one of my only toys.
That is a cool one. I do not.
I have a little fun stress ball of Portillo's fries. Does that count?
Yeah. Okay. Gunner. Let me see what toy you got in front of you here. Everybody's got toys
the
around.
greatest Star Wars figure ever. Naked Jar Jar.
Yes.
The greatest Star Wars figure ever.
Hell
With the Santa hat over his junk.
I'm told he's anatomically correct under the hat, though I can't back it up with paperwork. This is my most prized position. Thank you. You know who you are. You're probably watching right now. You know.
Looks like he's got a big move on.
It's me.
I know it is. I know it is. I'm saying that.
Hey,
now, Chris, do you have
next?
one of those? Because you're a Christmas completist. You don't have that.
Yeah.
I have that, but I did put this little guy together.
Nice.
I have a Lego collection that's slowly growing over the years. After I sold a lot of them that I picked up years ago in '99. But we all have toys. We all have toys. We need to play with our toys, like you said, Rich. And I thank you guys for being guests on the show, speaking your opinions on the Acolyte. And I hope to God, you know what? The most disappointing thing about the Acolyte will be if they do not deliver season Season 2. Hey, speaking about toys, Machtails from the Cantina Live, number 61. We'll do that next month. And remember, join me on Patreon, and you get the weekly podcast. You get access to my collection room virtually, if you will, as I do the Inside the Wampa Cave segments, and also Inside the Vaults, and so much more. You also get merch. I know I got Rich Brendel's Wampa Cave shirt. He just became a producer not super long ago, and that is one of your perks, along with an IMDb credit. So I am your show host, Chris Mock. I want to thank all my guests, all my producers, all my Patreon members for their support, and all those that have tuned in. We will catch you guys next time on another episode of Mocktails from the Cantina Live. Down the road I go. So long, everybody.